Hello, folks. Hello, folks who are joining. Welcome. Let me see. I'm going to try to make sure we've got everybody who can come in, get in here. Just so everybody knows, I am going to be joined by the folks from the Sprocket podcast in a few moments as we all sort of come in. We have the timer is set. We are on for about 40 minutes is my understanding here. So we will make this all work. Everybody who is joining is going to be automatically muted until I let you in. Now, Mr. Dittus, I am going to be, let's see. I'm going to be letting you in. Oh, you are in.
Ahoy.
Ahoy. And anybody else, let's see, I'm going to be muting folks as we, if you are not already muted, just so that we can kind of keep things a little bit on the easier to handle side. I'm going to ask Brock to start your video.
I will try. Hang on.
We'll get that started. Hello, sir. Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
Welcome. And welcome everybody who's joining us. We're really excited to, try this. We realized that as we were starting to go along, as all of this bananas, nutbaggy things have been going on in the world that you, oh, by the way, have you heard there's a massive pandemic happening? Don't know if you've checked the news at all. I know, seriously, Brock, is it also happening in Salem, which I understand is a place worth living, or what's your line?
It's not so bad right now, honestly. It's
is it less bad? I don't know.
Compared to other parts of the world. But I think it would be good to acknowledge right at the outset that part of the reason we're doing this is because it's a little nutty out there. So yeah,
it is.
Thank you, Tim, for coming up with the idea. I appreciate it. Also, how's the audio? Okay.
The audio is great. And Aaron, I'm going to be asking you to start your video because I see Aaron's iPhone. So
I'm trying. There we
are, sir.
Hey, look at you.
Sir.
I haven't figured out.
I am going to allow, let's see, Guthrie is muted for reasons that are unclear to me, but I will try to unmute Mr. Guthrie. Oh wait, no, Guthrie, it looks like you're on. Can you speak, sir? Do. I hear you. Okay, well that's good.
Cool deal.
And then also I'm going to ask you, Guthrie, to start your video. So we've got all the folks who are the four of us. While Guthrie is joining us, I am going to show my brew of the day. This is the High-Alai.
Oh, nice.
That is the India Pale Ale. And let's see,
you've had a few of those. Those are good.
Yes, they are fantastic. I've got somebody whose audio's on who is not using headphones. Let's see, who is that?
Not me.
Oh, it was Kimberly. Kimberly, my lovely partner in crime, the #1 Pedal Shift Society member that you hear everything. I'm like, who's got their damn audio on?
Thanks for being here, Kimberly.
Thank you for being here, Kimberly. It was funny because I was like, oh, I'm going to pester and annoy her for the next 40 minutes with all of that. But anyways,
I heard the
folks,
click too, like when it was like, oh, that's me.
It was a very abrupt click. Yes, it's like
I don't know if
headphones.
you guys. I mean, we're all of a similar age. I don't know if you ever had an experience where like you were using the landline on your home phone, and then suddenly someone else picked up the phone somewhere else in the house. Like you knew they were there, you didn't know who they were.
Oh,
it was like, hey,
yes.
Lines in use, party line, get off.
Yep.
Well, worse when it got you off of the dial-up. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Mom, I was downloading stuff.
Exactly. I'm having to tell my cousin that our happy hour, the Mooney happy hour with all the cousins worldwide, is happening in an hour. So
we only have so much time.
So this takes precedence. This is our global happy hour. So
sure does.
Anyways, I feel like that we've kind of as we've been stumbling through the gate to make this all work out for folks. Essentially, what we thought we would do is do a little bit of a live bit of fun, sort of like the banter at the beginning of the Sprocket podcast, where we, the four of us, kind of have a little bit of a talk about kind of what's been going on, and we enjoy our beverages of choice. As I said, I've did this, and I don't know, just have a drink together because these are strange times. Brock, I know you are in a year of sobriety, so in addition to. Are you giving up your sobriety just for this, or are you in fact drinking just whiskey straight from the bottle?
No, so this is a fantastic product I just found on the internet called Ritual, and Ritual makes a couple of fake spirits, and this is I'm not going to cast aspersions at any other company that might advertise to those not drinking on Instagram, but their product sucks. So this one This one actually has kind of a nice burn, which, if you are a whiskey fan, which I, prior to this year have been, this one actually has kind of a burn to it, and I appreciate it. So anyways, it's a good drink, and this will be what I'm starting out with. And I'll introduce, when I crack open the other one, I'll crack open one that I also would recommend for those who like the alcohol but don't drink it right now.
I'm curious what causes the burn if it's not alcohol. I'm sure it's perfectly not poisonous.
Peppercorn?
Peppercorn, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That's fantastic. Let's see. Aaron, what are you imbibing now?
From two angles. I don't know if you noticed, I got my phone, and then I finally got the studio computer to work. So let's see if I can get in both shots. There we go. Kansas City, sarsaparilla.
Excellent. And Guthrie, are you with us?
Yeah.
What do you got going on?
I'm starting the morning off with a nice, lovely cup of coffee in a mug from a potter from the town I grew up in.
Pardon my French, but how the Christ am I the only one drinking amongst the four of us?
It's weird times, man. Weird times in history.
Well, I'm on the East Coast
time.
I'm
in the only state, by the way,
it was cool.
Let me note for the record, I am here in West Virginia at my cabin, and I will note for the record that West Virginia is the only state with no known coronavirus outbreaks at this point. Although I'm here to tell you, it's definitely here. I'm sure it's here. It's just folks haven't tested for it yet. But it is funny to see on a map, all of the different colors of the map, and then West Virginia is just grayed out. So,
yeah. Well, we should also probably just disclaimer that we're planning on having folks pitch in later on, right? And
that's right.
Just so that everyone's aware, those on the line now, those who might join later, we'll try and remind. But we may rebroadcast this, so you are here in virtual public, just to make sure everyone knows.
And let me also throw in a shout out to the chat box. If you are new to Zoom and don't know about the chat box feature, it is I believe, on your right-hand side of the screen. At least it is for me. But since I have hosting superpowers, I might have a different setup. But in any event, feel free to throw, as Guthrie just said, chime in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our little song and dance here for the next maybe 5-10 minutes or so. And then we're going to open it up. That's the idea here, is to kind of see folks are interested in kind of sharing what their experiences are and whatnot. And, we'll kind of figure that all out. I think in the interim, though, everybody who's not amongst the four of us right now, why don't we go video free for the moment? And then we will turn on video as we invite everybody in. Of course, also stay on mute as well, if that's at all possible for everybody. Which I think I've already done that auto-magically. So in any event, let's see. Maybe I'll start just talking about how things are here. How
are things going with you, Tim?
Things are going great. I'm glad you asked, Brock Dittus of the Sprocket podcast. I'm kind of intrigued. In some ways, I would kind of like us to avoid the larger topic of all of this craziness, but I will say what Kimberly and I have been doing. We've been watching a television program from the UK. It's on Netflix. It's called, what is it, The Stranger? Kimberly? Yeah, The Stranger. This is what we've been filling our time with. And Kimberly's not deep into getting into episodic television because, once you get into one episode, you got to get into a bunch. Can I just say 10 out of 10, A+, 5 stars, 2 thumbs up. We have one more episode to go, and we had to stop doing that last episode, which resolves everything, to do this fun little song and dance. So I'm just here to say, check out The Stranger. If you say, have some time on your hands and the ability to stream entertainment in your home outside of this fine happy hour. That's been kind of what's been doing, filling our time. We've got our dogs here. We've got a fire going that needs some tending after the happy hour is done. But yeah, it's been, we've been cooking. We've been enjoying some time together and, watching the world fall apart on CNN and other news outlets. So I don't know. What about you guys?
Who's next?
Why don't you go, Brock?
All right, cool. Yeah, and I think just like you said, Tim, I think we're not going to pretend that there's not a large public health crisis, because that's certainly happening. But we're also here to talk about all the other good things that happen in life. And right now, I'm standing in the garage of the house that I just bought. We closed at the beginning of March, and it's a weird feeling. Right now, I am both a renter and a homeowner, and it's the longest transition period I've ever had. because sometimes you move yourself into a storage unit. Sometimes you move yourself from one place to another with like 1 day to spare. Sometimes everything is like in a truck and you don't live anywhere. You live in a post office box. Like when we went on the bike tour in 2014, I lived in a mailbox, et cetera place, I think, technically on the record. But technically I didn't, because that's not a residence. And I was receiving residential mail, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, right now I've got 2 homes. I don't remember how many homes I have, I guess, but I'm moving from one to the other real slowly. And it's amazingly luxurious to have that much time. We can pull up carpet right now. I'm busy pulling carpet up because there was carpet over hardwood. The hardwood's not in pristine shape, but it's been covered up by carpet for like 30 years or something. And so that's really, really nice. The other thing that just happened the other day is those of you who have paid attention to me and my goings on as an off-air personality know that I've got a young son. He and I, we did a bike tour with the whole family last summer, but also trying to figure out how to set him up with things that he likes. And so those of you who remember Sprocket, long-time, 5-time or more timer, Corey Poole, Corey hooked us up with this incredible rocket slide.
Whoa!
And, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I saw the picture.
It's handmade, homemade. Corey put this together himself, and he and his daughter, who famously, circus arts and walking ball and all that stuff. She's amazing. But she outgrew this slide, and he was like, hey, does Cyrus want to go to the moon in a rocket ship? And when he dropped it off, I was keeping it in my living room, basically. But we had to move it in order to work on the carpet project. So I was carrying it from the front door to the garage through the public sidewalk, and this family was walking by from the park. Dad's walking a dog with a dog jacket on, and he's like, whoa, nice rocket ship. I said, thanks. And then mom and her young daughter are walking by, and they're like, what do you use that for? And I said, well, go to the moon, of course. And so I guess with the front door still open, they were walking past, and Adele overheard the daughter saying, that's so amazing. So thank you, Corey Poole, for passing on. And it's really, that's, I think, how we should all be. I know there's a market for resale for some things, and sometimes you got to have money, but it's really nice when you've got something that somebody else could use and you're just like, hey, right time, here's the thing, take it. So I would encourage everybody to do that. And moving for me is a great time. So everybody expect some calls. You're gonna get all the shit I don't want. Are we swearing on this? I forget.
I already have.
Right,
so yes. Aaron, what's going on with you? What's the sitch?
I don't have as long of a summary as Brock has.
Well, that's probably good. No offense, Brock, but
my life isn't as interesting. I don't have children to take on to a summer tour. I also moved. I'm still a renter. I'll probably always be a renter, but we got this cool place. I can't show you the whole thing, but look at all
twice the size
space.
of your old place, I understand.
It's twice the size. You can see, look at it. It just goes on forever behind me. Yeah, actually you probably can't see because the lighting's not so great right now, but yeah, so that happened. I've got 2 weeks off for 2 weeks because, again, we're not going to pretend that the whole world is not falling apart right now.
Longest spring break ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So just kind of looking for things to do in the meantime. Was going to travel, but those plans have fallen apart. In fact, we were both asked by our respective families, Anna and I, to not visit, please. And so respecting their wishes and also totally understanding why we wouldn't do that.
Flatten the curve, people.
Yeah. Yes. I just learned about that, actually. It's a really cool concept, and I am totally all for it. I am really enjoying the sarsaparilla, but I also got to point out that I'm also drinking black coffee as well, because when I'm not working and it's 10, or in this case noon, I've maybe been awake for 4 hours at most. Woo! and I don't know if this happens to you, Brock and Guthrie and Tim. Sorry if this sounds unfair, but I don't know what your schedules are. I just assume you're not up at the crack of dawn every day. But I don't know if this happened to you, Brock, when you were like always getting up for a route, but If I'm not working, like the morning just seems to like keep going, like that feeling of having just woken up. It was like 2:00 yesterday in the afternoon, and I still felt like it was still like 8:00 in the morning.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, so powering through with some coffee because sarsaparilla is caffeine free.
Oh yeah, we need it. We need to up that. We need to up that. Well, thank you for the check in there. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to show you one thing that's really cool. I don't know.
Snow on the ground that isn't there anymore?
It's not there anymore, actually. Oh,
Crazy.
but it is really beautiful out there. Like, I don't know.
Oh,
if you
look
can
at
see
that.
blue skies.
For folks who are tuning in and want the weather update, Washington, D.C. got a total of 0.6 inches of snow this year. And I believe that Portland yesterday alone probably beat that. So I don't know if that matters, but in any event.
I gotta crouch down here. I want to show you guys.
It does.
Both of our Bromptons just tucked right in the corner of our bedroom.
Look
right
at
here
that.
next to each other.
Beautiful, beautiful bikes.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, I was going to ride mine in a week or so on the California coast. That was going to be fun, and it'll happen. It'll happen
Eventually, right?
It's going to happen.
It's just delayed for a while.
It's just delayed, and I've got an idea for a socially responsible flatten the curve style bike tour that's going to replace it, and I'm going to be talking about it either on this Thursday's pod or on the following Thursday's pod. But it's going to be happening. So
imagine the ability to like change the shape of a hill that you have to climb. That's intense.
That would be pretty amazing to flatten the actual curve of a hill.
Well, yeah, but and also metaphorically speaking, we could climb this the hard way, or we could climb this the easy way. I like the idea that it doesn't have to be the hardest hill we've ever climbed.
There you go. There you go. Guthrie, what's going on with you, man?
Oh, not too much. I've been working from home kind of before this whole thing kicked in. So it's sort of weird that, not too much has changed in my day-to-day, but have been trying to like keep the stir craziness out. It's already kind of difficult working from home. You have to like force yourself to go outside, but now it's like, oh sweet, it's excuse to keep working from home, I guess. So I'm just the biggest thing I think I've noticed is my schedule is getting a little off. Aaron mentioned like waking up and feeling like it's 8 a.m. It snowed it snowed yesterday in Portland, so if there's snow out, typically I'm out. So it started last night at about like 1 or 2, and I just have been kind of out digging the snow. Slept on the porch last night just to get some of the good winter feels.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it's, it's the next best thing to camping if you can't go out into the woods.
Very important question. Were you in sandals?
I didn't have shoes on.
Doesn't count.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Judge's ruling, allowed.
The tile is as cold as it is on the front porch. I think I'm going to set the tent up in the backyard and just kind of roll with that for the next few. Because so on my end, for folks that haven't been tuning in to the Sprocket as much, I was kind of planning on going to Japan in 2 weeks, but as you might be able to guess, that's not happening. So yeah, I think I'm trying to get my camping in here at home instead of out somewhere else. But I have, speaking of things to watch, I found this very like calming and enjoyable. It's not, I would call it a nature documentary. I'll link it in the chat here. But I found 10 hours of ISS footage, sort of. So if you're looking to totally
International Space Station?
Yeah. It's just big passes, long shots over the Earth. And if you've been looking for some perspective, as I have lately, I found that 10 hours of space footage has been a pretty good way to achieve that. So that's kind of been my jam lately.
We all have choices in our viewing choices, and well, that's one. So
with 10 hours of anything is pretty great. I love the idea that you can just set something and then let it go, especially when it's the sexy sax guy and it's somebody else's computer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you talking about the Moldovan sax guy, intense sax guy from the Eurovision contest?
That's right, I think.
Yeah, it's better than yakety sax.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest things ever. Hey, so I'm curious what you all think about it, and I think maybe this will be what we open it up for the folks in the room here as well. one of the things that I think that we're all sort of struggling with is, with this weird paradigm shift that we're in right now. It's like, I consider bicycling, which is kind of a common theme amongst our shows, so I figure we'll go with that. Bicycling is, I think, a properly safe social distancing kind of a thing. I think we can go out and choose to bicycle and maintain this social distancing to stop from being stir crazy. It's not like this is some natural disaster where we can't go outside of the house. It just means that we probably shouldn't be, I don't know, interacting with lots of people. I know that bicycling can be a really social thing for people, but for me, it tends to be a kind of a solo, kind of a meditative thing. And I'm looking at it as being sort of my lifeline through all of this. I'm just curious what you guys all think. Does anybody have any thoughts in particular amongst you four? And then maybe we'll open it up and see what other folks are thinking about as the bicycle as a tool to help get us through this.
Yeah, it's interesting watching the public response. I've been doing a lot of monitoring of Twitter, just kind of seeing what's happening in the circles that I'm in. And I think it's interesting to see the difference between people who have the idea that outside is a place that you can go, and as they say, outside is still free. But also the question of, like, do you have the way to get out? And some people do, some people don't. So if you are a person with a bicycle, you're a fortunate individual at this time in history, because you still have the ability to get out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see something, a few things, Dan, it says 3 feet apart is safe distance. Cough can carry germs up to 6 feet. So, we do have to be maybe careful in how we stay apart if we ride in groups. Let's see. I believe it's William Salthale, and if WM stands for something other than William, sir, please let me know. Or ma'am, I don't know. Or folks, or I've been wondering whether a cough might cling in the air as people ride on. I think this is all really interesting science behind all of this. But, if we are riding mostly solo, or we're keeping kind of a safe distance, it does feel like that the chance for exposure outside is probably a reasonably low enough risk. I mean, I'm no scientist or anything like this. I will say, I think I've mentioned this maybe either on the show or just in the massive amount of recordings that will eventually be on my show, that I've been interested in pandemics for the last 20 years, which is super weird. I note that for the record, but I started reading a book about the 1918 flu pandemic a long time ago when my grandmother was still around, and I asked her about it. She was 4 at the time, and the one thing that she said is, I was too young to remember, but I do know this: we never talked about it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. But I've done a ton of reading on this kind of stuff. And so just learning about the social distancing and all that other kind of stuff, it's just, I'm realizing that, the bicycle is a uniquely solo thing, unless you're on a tandem, I suppose. But, we can go out for a ride, I think, and maybe do things like this where we're interacting, finding other ways to sort of just, I don't know, have a little bit of fun and sort of have this weird, unique global experience that I'm not sure we've had in our lifetimes in any real way. And I'm not sure we could get in any other way other than something like this. But anyways, those are my kind of 2 cents on all of that.
Yeah, I think
I find that, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, so like, I was thinking a lot about cycling in the context of traveling and meeting people. And so I think in the solo sense, it works out really well. One of the things I was thinking about quite a bit in regards to the Japan trip was I had planned on using warm showers to stay with folks. And I think that type of cycling in particular is pretty much a no-go right now. Because you're like, I was like, it would be like the first time that you show up and people are like, no, go away. we don't want you here. But in regards to the like very independent solo travel, I do agree. It's a nice way to get out and to, be a party of one in the world. I think that's a very like healthy way to weather the storm, so to speak. So there's, definitely different dynamics, I think, depending on your touring style. Mine, one of the things I really like when I'm touring is connecting with people. So that's a little bit of a hard one because I can go out and I can be by myself for 3-4 days, and that's perfectly fine. But I think when I look back on my tours, a lot of what I remember is experiences sharing food with people, getting different perspectives, and really, I think the connections that you get, sort of those cross-world connections, that for me is a big part of cycling as well. So some of both, and it is kind of changing that dynamic, so it's interesting.
I think that's a really good point, Guthrie, because I think so much of the experience in a touring that involves camping kind of scenario is that sharing of space and stuff like that. And, you know, as I'm sort of thinking about what I can possibly do on the C&O, for instance, you know, I may not see anybody because this time of year there aren't a ton of tourists, but, you know, if I do experience someone in camp, I might be able to wave from the other picnic table and just be like, hey, how's it going? And, you know, have those conversations, but, you know, share a safe distance apart. But yeah, it is interesting. Salt brings up an interesting thing in the chat room. He says, I will say that when mentioning the possibility of going out on a ride, a number of non-cyclist friends have chided any leaving of the house, which brings up another question about social stigma. I think that's a really interesting point, because I am getting over the last vestiges of a cough from, ironically perhaps, the flu that I caught a week before all of this. And, you know, as I've been coughing in public, I've been really mindful of that social stigma. So I think it comes in a lot of different ways. Somebody has their audio on. I got a little echo, which hearing me echo in my own ears, really disturbing, folks. Just here to tell you. Anyways,
it's back.
It's back. Aaron, I think your thoughts would be welcome in all of this too.
Well, okay, so I'm going to come at it from a pretty different angle in that specifically this disease it affects the cardiovascular system. It affects the respiratory system. And I'm certainly not going to like suggest exposing yourself or doing anything that might cause you harm. But with like any kind of respiratory or cardiovascular disease, the better health you're in, the better chances you have of like fighting this off or it not doing a whole lot of damage in the first place. So that said, like the bicycle, even just as a tool for exercise, I think is very beneficial. Go out, do some solo riding, even if it's, hey, Eric Iverson, look at that. Yeah, go out, do some solo riding, do some group riding, you know, just maintain your distance with each other. And that might actually make for a very interesting dynamic in a group of like, you know, 5 or 6 people, all 6 feet apart. It'd be very interesting.
I have an idea for a Pedalpalooza ride that hopefully won't be necessary to be this a COVID-19 Pedalpalooza ride where everybody stays 6 feet apart.
But
reminds me a little bit of the super legal ride that they had a couple years ago, where each person stopped one at a time at the 4-way stop on Southeast Clinton Street. And it took forever to demonstrate exactly how different it is driving a car as opposed to riding a bike.
Well, and the thing is with driving your car, like, yeah, you're isolating yourself to some degree, but I don't, again, like coming at it from sort of an exercise perspective, it's not going to benefit you as much as riding a bicycle would. And also in the meantime, like if you're riding a car with other people, you're stuck with that distance that the car or truck or van will give you. You know, you can vary your distance from each other on a bicycle, except, you know, again, mentioning a tandem. But if you're on a tandem with somebody, probably you've already exposed each other to begin with.
Hey, folks, I just am looking at Eric Iverson outside enjoying the world right now, and I am going to unmute Eric. Eric, I want to hear from you. You are now, I believe, unmuted. What's going on, sir?
How's it going, guys?
Where are you at, man?
I'm going to pan around, and one of you guys should be able to guess this. All right, here we go.
Oh.
You okay? Where
my first guess is Stubb Stewart State Park.
Aaron wins.
There we go. Live from Stubb.
To Aaron.
Live from Stubb Stewart State Park. Is it not crowded there? It does not look crowded.
Yeah, there's actually a good amount of people in the day use up at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Mountain biking and disc golfing, I presume. But we were just out here camping. I'm with Beth. Say hi, Beth.
Hey, Beth.
Hi.
And yeah, we didn't bike here. We drove here, so don't tell anyone.
Hashtag not cheating.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. Judge's ruling, I'll allow it. Well, Eric, thanks for showing that. You know what's crazy? All the times I've been to Oregon, I've never been to Stubb Stewart, not once.
And we got to fix that.
We're going to have to fix that. I totally agree. So, all right. Thank you, sir. I'm going to put you back on mute so you don't have to worry about that. I'm curious if there's anybody else that wants to chime in, especially if you're in an interesting location. I don't know how I'm going to figure that. Throw yourself in the chat box.
William's got a question.
Who does?
Salt.
Oh, Salt. Okay. By the way, we've got 10 minutes left in all of this too. Oh, there's Salt. Okay. Salt, I'm going to unmute you. And let's see. I think I've unmuted you. There you go. You're up, sir. What do you got?
Hi. Yeah, I have a group ride, and it's coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've been trying to discuss this. It's not like a go fast group ride. It's a social type group ride. And I know that socialization is, kind of what we're trying to avoid, but at the same time, it seems like there's quite a bit of harm of keeping everyone cooped up. And if people are willing to take the precautions of maybe riding further apart and at stops kind of socializing I don't know. I don't know if I want to be convinced, if I want arguments to convince others, or if I want people to be able to make the best decisions while staying healthy and staying healthy in multiple ways, because we are social creatures. So
yeah.
Just wanted to bring
I think
up.
that's a great point, man. My take on this is one of those of us who are out and biking a lot, we're probably amongst the folks that are probably amongst the healthiest that, yeah, we might get sick, but it's unlikely that we would have any kind of long-term effects. I'm worried about passing this off on people that aren't so lucky, the immunosuppressed,
Exactly.
et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's why, and Aaron, you've worked with, I think, some folks who fall into that category in past jobs. So, you may have some unique insight on that. But my point is that I'm doing this I'm going to be acting in the flatten the curve, cancel everything mode myself, just because I don't want to be part of having. I want to have a clean conscience going forward past this year that I didn't contribute to the possibility that someone else got sick because of me. So, anyways,
I think it was a good point from Salt, just the idea that we are social creatures, and I think it's probably important to make the distinction in the next few months, the difference between socialization and I guess whatever you'd call getting people infected.
Isolation.
And, yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah, because you don't have to be super close in order to stay social. And I think it's going to be super important for people to stay social and stay connected to each other, especially in the next couple of months. So finding ways to do that, I think that's really, really important.
I think there's a way to do your group ride and be responsible. And I think if you go into it with that attitude, Salt, I think you can do it and you should do it. But I'm sorry, Guthrie, I think I stepped on you there.
Oh, no, you're fine. I got some pretty neat ideas from local journalist, author Sarah Merck. She put out a thing that's sort of like things you can do in self-isolation. And one of those that I forgot, but I usually keep a thing of stamps just on my desk so that it's that much less friction if I do want to write somebody a letter. And she was pointing out that, as long as the U.S. Postal Service is still there, we can still write letters. And so one of the things, the fingers crossed, it's a way to connect digitally, but I liked her argument that we can also collect or connect analog as well, and that letter writing, while perhaps a lost art, is not out of bounds yet. So it was just kind of a reminder to, it's nice to get letters. It's nice to connect, and I think writing to good friends and folks that you haven't connected with in a while can be kind of its own form of catharsis. In addition to connecting digitally, I think that there's still that perceptible authenticity, if you will, with some of the older forms of communication. And so getting back in touch with those is something that I'm excited to do because of that effort and how nice it is to get letters and that kind of thing.
I think that's really awesome, Guthrie, because, here we are using something that's very modern in terms of communication as our way of doing something that's social and interactive amongst our kind of podcast communities, which I think is great. But I love the idea of going super old school on this as well. I think that's great. There's lots of different ways to do this. And maybe the bicycle's a tool, maybe the internet's a tool, maybe letter writing's a tool. I think there's probably a lot more. We're all going to learn a lot talking about it. Josh writes, did Brock just walk into his backyard golf course?
I walked into everyone's backyard, paid for mostly by the taxpayers of the city of Salem. It's
Salem.
not so bad.
It's not so bad.
They're gonna adopt that tagline, and you're gonna have to sue them for rights.
Right. So it was funny. I was at the Driver Spangle, friend of mine. He's the guy who runs the Swift Summit. He's been on the Sprocket podcast before. He was doing a little registration party for his summer events, and we bumped into multiple people who had seen or knew about the hashtag. So it was funny.
I love it. Folks, we are down to our last 4 minutes and 30 seconds of this happy hour. I think that one thing that I'd want to ask as part of this for folks throw it in the chat room, but if you'd like us to consider doing these more often, I think that we're all potentially game for that and how that would look and feel. We'd love feedback on that. So email us, email the pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or is it the Sprocket Podcast at gmail.com?
The Sprocket Podcast at gmail.com.
The Sprocket Podcast at gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts on all of this as we go ahead. Folks, 4 minutes left. Any kind of closing thoughts on what we've been talking about? It seems like I think we're all in kind of consensus that sort of like there's ways that we can be responsible but still be social and get out of the house. I feel like that we've reached consensus on that. But Brock, I wonder if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, well, like we were saying, it's going to be really important for people to stay connected. I think one of the things that's been really inspiring to me is seeing people. I'm on Nextdoor, and it's a social network for neighbors that, by and large, I'm not a huge fan of the platform, and it really does show you who like the worst people in your neighborhood are.
Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
Also, I've seen a lot of people offering to help folks who might be more medically fragile, like people who are of age, or people who can't get around, people who might be mobility limited, people volunteering and say, "Hey, can I go and do some shopping for you?" Unless it's for toilet paper, because as we know, toilet paper is sold out everywhere, even on Amazon. So I don't know what people think is going to happen. You hear a virus and you just think of the worst time you ever had with a virus, I guess. But it's one of those things that I'm really inspired by seeing what people do to help each other out. And you got to get strategic, but I'm really, I've got a lot of faith in people, in humanity. Even though I'm on Nextdoor, I think there's a lot more good than bad out there. And I think looking for opportunities to help people around us in the ways that we can without doing any more harm, I think is really, really valuable. And everyone has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Aaron Flores, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Your final thoughts.
I kind of want to piggyback on that, in that it's very interesting how Nextdoor and a lot of the social media platforms can very much be a hotbed for negativity. And then those same people who are really negative, they're actually some of the first ones to jump out and be like, "Hey, does anybody need something?" Which goes kind of along the lines of like, humanity isn't so bad. We're actually pretty good at heart. We actually really want to help each other. It's part of what got us out of the caves, and off the savannas and into houses. Cooperation. I personally have been kind of self-isolating. Given that my partner has been up and down the coast a lot, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that I probably have it, or at least, am carrying it. And it's safer to assume that than it is to assume I don't and then do something kind of dumb that might endanger somebody else who is more at risk.
Dude, throwing no viral load to you, sir, I hope. But if you do, feel better. Guthrie, we're less than a minute, so maybe we should just do our quick goodbyes in case we do get cut off. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for joining. Guthrie, your final thoughts to cut off.
You're all great. Thanks for showing up. Do what you can in your communities.
Yes, thank you all.
And I appreciate every single one of you.
This will be up on the PedalShift YouTube and perhaps the Sprocket YouTube, and perhaps on our feeds as well. Folks, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for sharing a drink with us. If the desire is out there, I think we're going to do this again. Stay safe out there. Have a drink. Enjoy yourselves. Cover your mouth. Wash your hands. Brush your teeth. Go to bed.
Much love.
All right, all. Well, we're not cut off yet. Well,
hey.
All right.
That's
well,
good.
we'll just talk until we kind of. We'll just keep talking until we're.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Like in those old '70s shows where they just all like go.
Freeze frame.
Yeah. I do want to test this until we get cut off. I mean, we've already said our goodbyes, but we may as well just keep talking.
No, we'll fix it in post.
It's like, when you're first dating that somebody and you're like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up.
And
it's sort of like that. It went from 2.5 minutes to less than a minute left.
Yeah.